So, my previous reviews, I usually give fairly positive reviews. Nothing going under average. I usually say it's kind of good, but not great, or it's a great book, or it's a good read, but I usually end up recommending the books on some level or another. That's gonna change today. Today we're looking at Emperor's Mercy, written by Henry Zhu. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. You know what? I don't even care if I mispronounced it. Now, this book is Henry Zhu's second work in the 40K universe. You can tell that his military experience really shows off in his writing. The way the military works in his stories truly feels authentic to the way how an actual military would work in these battle situations. Unfortunately, his lack of experience really shows off in one specific area in this book. Now, this is the first book in the Bastion Wars novel. Now, the book follows Inquisitor Obadiah Roth. I know I said that right. And he's sent into the Meridian system to investigate the arch enemy, essentially a chaos army that's invaded the system. Now, when I say chaos army, I mean not so much chaos space marines, but just corrupted humans. Okay, there is like one chaos space marine, but that's pretty much it. And let's start off with the positives. Not many. Henry Zhu has a knack for making decoy protagonists. What that means is he creates a character in which you think is going to be the main character of the story, but it turns out they are not. And he does a very good job at this. In fact, it happens a few times in the beginning of the book, thinking that some characters are going to be very important, and it turns out they're not. They just end up dying off. And I find it pretty interesting on how you could get a little bit attached to a character so early on, just to have him ripped away. That, I think he did a good job at. Now, where I think personally, in this book, I think he failed at, was the actual protagonist. And essentially the entire main cast. I couldn't stand the characters in this book. While I thought the story was okay, like the overall story arc on how it worked, I thought that was okay. It's the main character I didn't like. Obadiah Roth is an Inquisitor, as I said, but let's say if this book was a movie, and you're casting for this movie, a Warhammer 40K movie, set in a very dangerous, very serious world. Now, with that in your mind, the main character is played by Freddie Prinze Jr., and his friend is played by Ben Affleck. Now, I don't have anything against those actors and their acting abilities, but there are just some movies you don't want to see them in. And that's the feeling I get with this book. Obadiah Roth, he doesn't really take his position as an Inquisitor as serious as you think one should. I've read other books with Inquisitors, and I like the way they carry themselves. This guy is just a jackass who thinks he knows what he's doing. And to make things worse, he's a Mary Sue character. Now, Mary Sue characters can very easily overcome any obstacle that's presented to them simply because they're overpowered or overskilled in whatever is supposed to challenge them. Now, you can write very sympathetic and very likable Mary Sue characters that the audience could get behind, but it's also very easy to make unlikable characters, such as the main character in this book. And he's always put into these situations in which he should die, he should lose. I wanted him to die. I wanted somebody else to take control of the main character role. Now, I realize that I'm getting a little bit more emotional in this book than I did with any of my other reviews, but that's just how angry I was with the main character. I didn't think the story was all too bad. It's just the main character. And that's not the only problem I had. Like I mentioned, some of the main cast also kind of bugged me. They're very stereotypical characters, such as Roth's boss, essentially. Like somebody higher up in the Inquisitor chain. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But he's not the only character I was upset with. As I mentioned, a lot of the main cast also have problems. Now, he does get a female sidekick who also doubles as a possible love interest. Her name, Love Interest. And there are other characters that join, not too memorable, so I'm not going to really mention them. And they do have a plot in which there's a traitor in their midst, and somebody's leaking information and trying to get the entire party killed. And they do leave a red herring for one character. You know it's going to be this character. So since you know it's going to be this character, it has to be somebody else because it's just too obvious. And when they make the plot twist. It doesn't make any sense at all. In fact, when you find out who the traitor is, you realize, why didn't this traitor already kill Roth? Throughout their entire mission, there's been times where Roth was alone as traitor, and the traitor did not kill Roth. Why? They even pointed out in the book. Doesn't make any sense. Just because you point out your own plot holes doesn't mean they don't exist. And the reason for the betrayal boils down to, well, if you don't know why I did it, I'm not going to tell you. And to top it all off, this doesn't feel like it's in the Warhammer universe at all. I mean, they use some of the names. You know, they use the Inquisition. They talk about the arch enemy being Forces of Chaos. They talk about the Imperial Guard. But aside from mentioning some titles, this does not feel like it's in the Warhammer universe at all. Seriously, this could be a sci-fi novel off of any other universe. It's not in the Warhammer 40k universe. It's just a regular sci-fi story. They slapped on some names from the Warhammer 40k universe. At least that's the way it feels like. Now, obviously, I didn't like this book. But I know some people will like it. And I know some people do like it. I've seen some reviews of people liking this book. Now, maybe the reasons I don't like it, you would like it. Henry Zhu does a very good job of battle scenes. There's several battles, and they are very well written. The overall goal of the story, the overarching story, is not bad. I kind of like the overarching story. Where it fails is the characters themselves. And not just the main characters, but also supporting characters. I didn't like the dialogue between the characters. I didn't like some of the personalities. The only character I really liked was Silverstein. Now, I got all 3 books in the Bastion Wars series. I bought them all at once. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have read the other 2 books after I read this one. But since I already got the books, I figured I might as well. And I was pleasantly surprised. Now, I didn't like this one. If you want to read it, give it a shot. If you get past the character flaws that I found that I didn't like, you might like them. Who knows? The whole story isn't too bad, but it's not a very memorable one. This one, I say, is skippable. That's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth.